Good afternoon and welcome all for this fourth and the last session of City Regions webinar series. Thank you very much for joining us, and some of you have been joining us also in the previous sessions, and those who joined new, they're also welcome. So today we have three speakers. We will start with Mr. Sridharan. Mr. Sridharan is the Director of School of Planning and Architecture, Bhopal. Then we will have Mr. Jacob Esso. He is a retired additional Chief Town Planner of Government of Kerala. Then we will have Dr. Arindam Biswas. He is the Associate Professor at IIT Roorkee, Architecture and Planning Department. So before we start, I would like to also suggest a few things. If participants can keep themselves, their audio video devices on mute, that will be helpful. Second, all the presenters will be given approximately 18 minutes and a short time for question answer. Followed by that, a quick question answer can be done, maybe 2 or 3 of the questions immediately after. You will get some more time towards the end of after all presentations. And today we would also like to request all the participants, those who are watching either on Zoom or either Facebook or somewhere else, to also fill out, if possible, the feedback form. It will be helpful for us to know how this webinar series has been. And yeah, that would be really helpful. And I'll be posting the links also in the Zoom chat here. So again, welcome. Just also to formally introduce myself, I am Lalit Kishor Bhati, an architect urban planner based in Auroville. And this webinar series is jointly organized along with Dr. Kishor from, he's a visiting faculty at IGCS, Indo-German Center for Sustainability at IIT Chennai. I'll hand over to Dr. Kishor for a few words, and then we will enter into the sessions. Thank you and welcome again. Kishor.
Thank you, Lalit. Yes, good afternoon to you all. It's a pleasure to have you all here with us today. And as Lalit said, this is our last session, and I'm actually visiting faculty of the Indo-German Center for Sustainability, which is a collaboration with a number of German universities. And I'm also attached to the university in Germany, RWTH Aachen, one of the large technical universities, but my background is in urban and regional planning and also social anthropology. And I'm based here in Chennai, in fact, as one of those visiting faculties working in the area of land use, urban and regional and rural development within the center. One of the prime activities is to facilitate exchange and sharing of ideas, especially between the two countries. And this is also one of the reasons why Lalit and I initiated this series. So we have had speakers from GIZ and also from IGCS in the past few talks. And I'm looking forward to today's presentations and discussions, and hand over back to you, Lalit.
Thank you, Kishor. Thank you very much. So our today's first speaker is Dr. N. Sridharan. He is a director of SPA Bhopal, and he has been in this field of planning, especially also the interest in the regional planning is wide varied. So his topic for today is ruralization and urbanization nexus. And so I think we all are just curious to hear what we will get insight from this. Mr. Sridharan, welcome again. Thank you. Over to you.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'll just put it on my share. I hope you have seen that. Okay, yes. Now I'll be talking about urbanization and ruralization and nexus. I hope you can see the slide.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the aspects which I'm going to talk about is in terms of rural upscaling that's happening. See, all the time you're talking about in terms of peri-urbanization from the urban, what's happening in the surrounding areas in terms of rural. I'm talking about the rural, how it is coming up in terms of moving towards that urban. Okay, that's what something which is important. Now, in this context, we also have to talk about this floating and the reverse migration, which is being discussed, especially after the post-COVID. What's happening is that, is it something unique, or is it that we are not able to follow in the Indian context in terms of reverse migration? Then next, we'll be talking about urban mission, which we have been doing across. Now the three phases has come. And then the new things which have come, it is called Swamitwa, which is only for rural development, how they are planning to do in the next 3 years, let's say up to 2024, what the government is talking about. And then the next experience, which we are doing it here, is in terms of village spatial planning, which we are doing. First, we started off in SPA Bhopal about in 2018. Now it has been scaled up at least in 9 states, which is going to come up at a later on by 2024 and 2024. I think end of 2024, they are planning to expand it to almost like 6 lakh villages. Then the suggestion has been requested by the organizers. What are the proposed way forward in this particular area? I'll be just quickly talking about it. Okay, to starting off with that, what's that happening between the rural and urban settlement and population, which I'm trying to work it out. So if you see in terms of range of number of villages that's happening, 10,000 plus villages, which are around 3,961 with 63 lakh, or say 634 lakhs or something like that, which is almost equivalent to 320 urban centers concentrating about 600 plus or 6 million or 60 million thing which is happening there in the urban context. In other words, we have more and more rural villages, which is around like which apparently everyone will know us. Between 2001 to 2011, most of this urbanization which has occurred is because of this 3,961, which is called as census town. So that itself is all and around that peri-urban areas, and also they are also moving towards the urban context in this particular aspect. In other words, ruralization of urban areas. Okay. The next point, if you see the average thing which is happening in most of these villages which are having 10,000 plus above, which means it's equivalent to class 4 town in the urban context. Similarly, which is class 5 town is almost 6,000 plus, okay, 6,500 plus. Okay, this is something which is happening in the Indian context now, way back in 2011. Now, if you see where they are happening, probably so Jacob will be talking to you much more. Most of it, I think, is happening in this area in Kerala, also in Bihar and part of UP and West Bengal. That is a very large villages which is coming up, which is going to add on some further more in 2021 census. Similarly, when you go to large villages, it's entire Gangetic plain. That is where whatever research which we want to take up, it's not in, let's say, in Karnataka, not in Maharashtra, not in Gujarat, but it's all have to be concentrated in the Gangetic plains. That's very important in terms of large villages which are emerging, which is going to add on to the total urbanization in the future. Now, when you come to medium size also, it's also the heavily concentrated there, one in that Gangetic. And next thing which is coming up, something very interesting here, way back from Gujarat to almost like Tamil Nadu, which is already the urbanized belt of India. It's all concentrated with medium-sized villages. That means one trigger in this area will further lead to further urbanization between Gujarat to Tamil Nadu belt. Okay. Now, next thing is, where is this urbanization the migration is happening and urbanization is happening. When you go into the details, again, it's more in terms of the gender issue is most important here. Rural to urban female, it's almost like 15%. Urban to rural, even the people who are coming from urban to rural area is also 73% in terms of female. The problem comes in between rural to urban to urban, almost 74% or 75% of the male in both the cases, as well as in the and higher in the case of female, they are into the migration area. Now, a little bit of analysis of COVID-19. I'm sure JIZ will be more interested to know about this. If you see that the green zone and the orange zone are safe, Only the problem comes in terms of high infection urbanization and other industries. So that, in other words, what happens in the peri-urban areas and also in the somewhere in the ruralization area or that large villages, there is no problem in terms of what you call in terms of COVID or anything. Whereas most of these are non-farm jobs that's emerging that is in this area, both in the little bit of orange as well as in the greenhouse area. Okay, the next. Every time we are talking about it, oh, there's a major problem has happened in terms of migration, that's all the thing. Probably many of us are trying to understand or forget. Okay, India has been doing this Kumbh Mela, which is almost like every 6 years or every 5 years, every 4 years we are doing it. You can see on the right side Kumbh Mela. It is 200 in 2013. It was almost like 12 crores. In 2019, in February or later on, it came to almost like 24 crores. Now we manage this every 4 years very well. Not many of the death, not many of the things, because everything including health and everything has been, it's like a small town which is being done. And also it goes up to further level, not in terms of small town, but it becomes even also not in a metropolis, but at least at the class 1 size town, which we are taking up in terms of Kumbh Mela. When we can address this issue now in terms of peri-urban or urban or some other, even the census town, it can be easily done provided we have the management aspect of it. Okay. Now going a little bit further, we try to track this. Thanks to one of my students, we analyze the risks of community transmission of COVID-19, where it is coming, which is in the rural area, it's in the urban area. And when you analyze this, you can see that where it is coming, it's also in the entire urban belt and also very concentrated in the Kerala area. Now, again, if you go see on the right side, India's migrant labor crisis. Now, in the green areas, or in other words, the green, what do you call, green valley areas, they're not much of a problem in this case. Okay. Now, let's go into the movement of migrants, pre-migrant, the pre-COVID as well as post-COVID. If you see the areas, most of them are coming from these Gangetic plains. Most of them are coming to Rajasthan, Rajasthan to Bangalore, Rajasthan to, let's say, Mumbai, then Bihar to Mumbai, UP to Mumbai, and also to Delhi. The transmission comes only from this area, which is in the eastern side of India. Most of the transmission comes in terms of this area. Now, something very interesting, I'm sure you must have seen it. In 2015, we started with the URDFPA guidelines from the land use planning. Not many of them may not know about it. How the rural and urban areas of development has been planned at the time by MUA, the Ministry of Urban and Housing Affairs. But if you see the 2015, it's almost like a lip service for them for the rural development as such. Not much work has been done in that. In 2016, again, where the small team was done by the Ministry of Panchayati Raj, we did the work on the rural area development plan guidelines for them. That again, there are a lot of what you call constraints in that, but we'll talk about it later. The next part, which has come up just yesterday, where to address this issue, which came in the parliament, is the database for the migrant workers. You know, because of a lot of things which are talked about during the COVID, this is something very important for us in terms of targeting, skill mapping, and utilization of government schemes. Because each district in the country has got the skill development plan. But how do you integrate them with the other thing in terms of rural development as well as in the peri-urban area as well as in the rural area is a big question that has to be approached through this thing in the act. Next is in terms of migrant workers. Even the migrant workers, when they go about, they say that, okay, there'll be journey allowances to visit their home and everything. So I hope in future, let's say beyond 2030 or something, this through aspect of it will try to address the issue of that migration of this. Next point, where it's come to after this one, when it started off in that, what do you call, Urban mission. When they started with the Urban mission, we came out with the census town. That was when the discussions were there right from the beginning. I was there in the technical committee. In the census town, which contributed more than 30% of the urban population increase, which I told you before, between 2001 to 2011. Now, what was the main thing? The first time in India, we started about spatial planning. In other words, land use planning strategy has been introduced in rural development model, which was not there before. They were talking about block planning, everything was there, but it's all in terms of fiscal, in terms of the physical infrastructure. They never talked about land use planning, not about how many health issues and how many things will come up. No, it's only in terms of number, not in terms of land use planning. This is the first thing, because this is not exposed to any of the architects. Because very rarely you can see an architect going into a rural area talking about land use planning. They will be talking about vernacular architecture, but not more into that. Here we require a special dynamics, special people who can talk about rural development in spatial area and also spatial planning in rural area. That is a big challenge for us, which we don't have much people who can work on spatial planning in the rural area. That's a big capacity problem there. Okay, the next part, when we talked about the rural area urban mission, the first time the vision had talked about the cluster of villages that preserve and nurture all these things which has happened in the urban villages. It's not new. Prior to that, when the former president also talked about it in terms of village development. What is the difference here? When they talk about here in terms of urban, the cluster of villages is also like an urban. The total population, what we went across from Tripura to almost like Kerala, I did a study of almost like 800 plus villages in this area. When we did the analysis, we find that minimum village size is almost 1,000 to a maximum of almost like 49,000. So, which is almost like a big town for at that level. Okay, so this vision is to come out with this in terms of spatial planning, which is very important. Next, what is the level? How it is linked to the 73rd Amendment Act and how it is led that. Now, here at the top level, we talk about the secretary level of the Government of India, state level committee, at the principal level secretary is there with us, monitoring unit, then district level, and then block level, and also talking about the leading of the GP the what you call Gram Panchayat at that level through Sarpanch. Now, the master plan, though the 73rd Amendment and the 74th Amendment talked about the district level planning, so far nobody has talked about it. Another major problem, even in the vision as well as in the urban mission in the post period also, there is not many of the town and country planning, the so-called act, is not go into the or preparation of a master plan is not under the act. So nobody is trying to work on this particular aspect even to this date. Though there's some here and there, some Andhra Pradesh and Bihar and some of the states, they try to amend this to a make extent. In other words, at the block cluster, which is depend upon the participatory approach in terms of which the 73rd Amendment talked about, we are not still doing much on this. Okay, everything is done to the Sarpanch and then it is given there. There's no participatory planning as such in this level. Now, the next point. Here we try to analyze in terms of assessing where it is located, the right side in terms of the phase one, where it are located. Are they located in and around that major road network, or is this urban mission is very far off? One. On the left-hand side, it's about the phase one, phase two, phase three, how it has emerged. Now, you can be interesting to see that in the case of phase one, there's some country, in some states have done very well, whereas in phase two, some of them have done well. In phase three, some of them have done well. But overall, okay, there is some change has occurred. But again, what is the main problem here? The convergence is the main problem here, because the urban mission thinks about convergence, which is still a big question because of ego issues and also because of political this thing at the grassroots level. Now, the next point. You might be knowing about, you must have been seeing, this is from that Ministry of Rural Development only. They talked about economic activities, they talk about basic amenities, they talk about digital amenities and also social amenities. Most of the address so far they have done is in terms of basic amenities. In terms of economic activities, still it is not lacked up. I mean, it's not backed it up properly. And in terms of digital amenities, there's still a major big gap in that. And similarly, in terms of social amenities, is slowly going up in a big way. Okay. Now, I'll give you an example, which we have done for almost phase one to phase three. in Rajasthan. It's located everywhere. You can see that wherever it is. In most of these places, it's something interesting which you have to see. Like since, let's say, for example, in Salabas in Jodhpur, okay, which is almost like a middle area. Okay, this area, the Salabas is part of the metropolitan area. Sorry, the so what do you call the master plan area, but still they claim to be in terms of a village. So there is a conflict between which is rural, which is urban. What is the thing in terms of money transfer between the urban and rural? How much funding should be given for syllabus in Jodhpur? There was a big debate which was going on at that various level. And then next question in terms of prioritization, which one is important, which one is not important? These are all decided by the sarpanch, not by the with the people who are sitting down. Okay, to overcome that, they came out with one. Yes, they realized they means the government of India realized the importance of one, the land use planning. For that land use planning, we require a map. For that map, they came out with the program called Implementation of Swamitwa Scheme way back in 2019 late. Okay, when they came out with this, they had to cover, I mean, they're planning to cover almost like 6.62 lakh villages across the country within 4 years, and then covering about so through using the drones. Okay, the first year it's planned to be around 1 lakh villages. It goes on up to, and the scale is something interesting. The scale is about 1:5,000, which we don't have any kind of this kind of thing even in the urban area. Okay, the first time the ISRO has been coming up, NRSC has been brought in to do this drone work at the scale of 1:5,000. Now this they have initiated this time way back in 2000 February, March. They started. We had a long discussion where I was a pioneer person in this, and then we try to identify almost 14 institutions across India, and each institution is taking up two. In fact, even IIT Roorkee is also doing some work there after we suggested some them. So we listed almost like 14 institutions across India. They're doing this, some of them. I want to show that how it comes in. Prior to that, in 2018, where it started off, we
Mr. Shidharan,
yeah,
you have 3 minutes.
yeah. So on that, we analyzed this in terms of all this, the land use planning for a nearby in Bhopal. We, through participatory method, we went into the details of it and then came out with that. And then after we wrote the vision, we came out with this whole thing. Now, the same thing which I talked about is being done now in 2 more villages at the national level. And at the national level, yes, we are trying to identify where the panchayats and all these things are involved in this. The next, how we do this. Now, initially, the NRSC comes out with the thing which is like green color map. And then because in the Abadi area, they don't have any information. From that information, we appear through the drone. And then from the drone, we try to analyze this in terms of land use planning. This is what we try to do it through this. On the left, you can see how using ourselves that thing and then coming out with a map here. Okay, that is something which I wanted to show it to you. Based upon this, we analyze the land use planning for this, and that's a complete thing. And the discussion which we talked about, okay, they've asked in terms of propose where you can in terms of way forward. Now, I'm totally against this in terms of generating more and more case studies in that urban area, but it is to be concentrated in the census towns. It is going to be the push factor for urbanization in the future. If at all you want to think in terms of case studies, not in terms of just generating, but if you want to do some quality work in this field, it has to be on the census town. Second is engaging city resources. Unless you touch in terms of property tax, it cannot be done. And then we have also talked about, we have already grouped it called Asian Peri-Urban Group, which we have been doing it every year. Now the 3rd year we have done it in Bhopal. And it is only on what you call Asian Peri-Urban Group, where India, China, and South Korea are involved together. So you can participate in that every year, and then we can do that. This time we plan to have it already in the online. So the WhatsApp group, we have so many groups already. So one more means is not going to generate. What is important is to come out with a frequent seminars and other things on that, and then do this. Next, enabling students. Yes, it's very good. We can educate them in terms of capacity for the future. Institutional capacity, yes, it is there, but we have to find out the person who can work in the rural area and commit themselves for at least for 6 months to do this work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sridharan. Thank you very much. Very, very intense and insightful. You covered many grounds. I have requested the participant to post their question here in the chat box so that we can take them up in some order. Before people start writing questions, would it be possible to share some of these websites which are easily accessible? Because I think many a times, of course, people do research and all, but if sometimes there is a easy access to some of this information, that helps.
Yeah.
Have you come across any resource websites where these things are easily accessible?
Yeah, it is available from Ministry of Panchayati Raj. Ministry of Panchayati Raj has got some of these details.
So is it not helpful if all the planning related website resources, they are under some one portal domain which are more accessible?
Yeah, it is there. It is there. Either the Ministry of, the Town and Country Planning Organization, TCPBO, has got all these 2015, 2018, all these documents. They have it on them.
Okay, fine. So there is a question, would you like to read yourself? That may be also fine, or you want me to read? Both ways fine.
Yeah, so that others can understand. Thank you. Would you propose different criteria to classify census town? Yes. Yeah, it has been being discussed. Yes, this can be changed. This can be, what do you call that? I'll just address the issue of Chris. The main thing is, yes, we have been discussing from 2008 onwards about this, how to redefine that what is urban. Okay. In fact, probably you may be knowing also the French team by Chris and Helen, all by Mary Helen and all, we are working together on this in terms of suburbia. In fact, there is one more person you must have met in IIT Delhi. The person is was Solomon Benjamin. He has worked on this also. We try to find out how to redefine the name of what is urban in Indian context. Still, it is being, because it, see, census is also under the Act. Census town to describe it is also under the Act. So they have to come out in terms of Act. They means the government has to come out with the Act. Then they can do it. Say, I give an example. In Tamil Nadu, overnight they change almost 400 plus between 1991 to 2001 in terms of urban. Okay, similar in terms of Kerala also, they did it in 2011. So it's all depends upon the state government to say that whether it is urban or rural, to define whether it is what should be the urban. Okay, so they have to decide, and when the state government has to decide on this.
So there are one or two questions on the similar line. How do we define and what are the criteria? There is a one question which we missed out, which is the first one from Neha. Instead of individual census towns, it is possible to focus on villages as a watershed level. That was the first question.
Okay, that was prior to that.
Yeah.
No, so far we have not approached that whole thing in terms of, let's forget about watershed, because watershed, the first one to talk about region in India, that is DVC, Damodar Valley Corporation, was the first one to came out with watershed way back in 1960s. But it has not been implemented at all in terms of what you call rural area development or urban area development. So the watershed was not a big this thing here taken up anywhere in India. One. Second, the district plan, which came up in the 74th Amendment and 73rd Amendment, they did discuss about this, how to do it in terms of various mapping and other things. Now, in the current one, which we are talking about spatial planning, we do talk about watershed, we talk about contours, we talk about all the details of it. Okay, we do discuss about it in a very detailed way.
There is a one more question. The previous one was from somebody logged in as Auroville only. It seems to me that the distinction between rural and urban is purely based upon the number of population. I think you have mentioned about this already. Maybe we should, for various purposes, to introduce other criteria in parallel. Basically, it is talking about distinction. How do we classify better or more with the present contemporary understanding of things about urban and rural? It is a bit frozen. Others can hear me, or what is happening, Mr. Sridharan? Chris, you can hear me? Okay, so maybe it is at the end of
Yes,
Mr.
you're audible.
Okay, so maybe it is at the end of Mr. Sridharan something.
Yeah, I think he got disconnected.
He got logged out or something.
Just a comment, the census towns definition, how they are classified is more than the population. There are other criteria, the proportion of employment, for example, in the agricultural sector.
Yeah.
So there are, I think, 3 or 4 different indicators that define whether this is a census town or whether it is still a village. And it's not the number of the population. So that is already taking some credit of this, I think, as it was applied in the last census. But the question is, to what extent is this useful now in this given situation when we talk about urbanization and the changing employment situation and also people's movements?
There was one question left, but I think we are also through with the question answer, short question answer time. We can now, or we can.
I want to add one thing.
Yes.
Yeah, the number of statutory towns, which were 4041 in 2011, now it has crossed 4600. So most probably in 2021 census, we will be having 5000 plus statutory towns. So around 500 to 600 census towns have been notified as urban local birth. This, I think, I have to give information to Dr. Sridharan also. We have compiled the information, but these information will be authenticated by Census 2021. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks for your quick intervention. And some criteria is also mentioned here by Anurima. So we can look into that. This is what Christoph was mentioning. I think we can now move to the next presentation. I would like to invite Mr. Jacob Esso. Mr. Jacob, are you there?
Yeah, I am here.
Okay, so Mr. Jacob is former additional chief town planner of Kerala, and the case studies from Kerala for a larger region, wider region, even district level. Even I have been hearing that Kerala has been doing quite commendable job. So we are happy and looking forward to see the case study from the person who himself has been engaged. Mr. Jacob, please go ahead. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Hope you can see the presentation.
Yeah, we can see. So you can also go to, my suggestion is, you see, you can open it in Google Slide on the top. Yeah. And when you go to Google Slide, it will come. You can bring it to the presentation mode. It is coming. So the view, if you go to view, third from the left, under roadmap, yeah, view present. Yeah, that should be fine. You want to see what? It is fine. You can start now.
Okay. Good evening. See, I'm here tracing a roadmap for district planning in India. And it is based on our experience. And see, 5 subject I'm dealing here, why district planning. Then I'm just introducing the Kollam model district planning. Then it's technical process. Then I'm just suggesting a methodology. Then I trace a roadmap how we can create district development plans in India. And finally, a few suggestions and recommendations. So before going into the subject, see, today our webinar is about city, region, and today. And today we are focusing regional perspective and practices. So the first question is why we are going for district plan. The answer is there in the constitution. See, when I was studying in School of Planning and Architecture, Delhi, see, our major part of one semester, we are doing the delineation of region. But in the middle of 90s, that is after the working report on district planning by Planning Commission, Amanda Rao report, and later famous National Commission on Urbanization headed by promising architect Charles Correa. So they clearly recommended a regional planning based on district. And later the 73rd, 74th Constitution Amendment actually decided for district planning in India. So it is validated or resolved that in India, the regional planning that we have to adopt is district planning or the metropolitan planning. That is there in the Constitution. The institutional architecture for district planning in India is, as per the Constitution, it is the District Planning Committee. So 243 ZD says that DPC has two important or specific or distinct role. That is consolidate the plans prepared by Panchayat and municipality in the district, and it is and to prepare a draft development plan as a whole. So 243 ZD again detail what is the nature of the district planning. That is also given in the Constitution, that is 243 ZD. The district planning committee shall, in preparing the draft development plan for the district, have due regard to the matters of common interest between Panchayat and municipality, including spatial planning. That is the first time our Constitution refer spatial planning. Then sharing of water and other physical and natural resources. That is our land use. Then integrated development of infrastructure. Clearly, the Constitution mentioned an integrated development. That is not an project-oriented or isolated plan preparation. It's an integrated development of infrastructure. Then a vast important parameter, that is environmental conservation. In Kerala, first we took Kollam as the pilot. It was during 2003, and this methodology has been accepted by many agencies. First, you can see the Planning Commission in its manual for integrated district plan. It recommended the spatial planning is a part of an integrated Kollam as an example. Then again, there was a Manishankar Iyer report. Manishankar Iyer report towards holistic Panchayat Raj. It also suggests Kollam as a model and considered Okay. Then our Town and Country Planning Congress also consider Kollam as a model. Then again, there is a committee constituted for decentralized planning and development, and that committee also accept the methodology of IDDP, LDP, and again EPWD also referred this methodology as a realistic methodology, and Kerala's Kollam development is widely acknowledged as a realistic methodology with a participatory approach. The paramount parameter of this methodology, it is given here, listed. It is listed here. So public participation is one of the major speciality. Then integration within plants and between plants, the spatial, it was done in a spatial platform, and it is in line with the 73rd and 74th Constitution. Like this Kollam model, we created district, it is IDDP, and in Panchayat level and municipality level, it is LDP. And 2 levels of plans has been prepared. The major process, I will explain the major process. See, before going into the process, let us understand its organization setup. And district planning committee is the apex body. Actually, there was an arrow like it is missed here. Anyhow, under DPC, see for the this right side, it is the organization setup for IDDP, and left side it is the organization setup for the LDP. And district development plan, the major technical arm was the special tag technical advisory group. This is headed by district collectors, and convener, it is district town planner. See, as I said, the apex body is the DPC, while the nodal agency, it is the district town and country planning office under the town and country planning department. So this special tag consists of all members from the various subgroups. See, this tag is divided into various subgroups. Say here, you can see starting from agriculture, irrigation, watershed, then industries, corporation, industries, health, infrastructure, environment. Then again, social side, that social welfare, women, child, poverty alleviation. Then tourism. Also, finally, you can see the finance. So this special tag is divided into various subgroups, like 18 subgroups. And see, if it is agriculture, it will be chaired by a DPC member, political elected member. Then it will be convened by the principal agriculture officer. See, if it is health, it will be chaired by a elected member, convened by district health officer. So likewise, various subgroups are there. And certainly there is a special subgroup, spatial planning subgroup. So all members of these subgroups are included in the tag. And certainly there is an integration committee and coordination committee that you can see it from here. Now coming into the process. See, you can see five major steps. That is data collection, then analysis, then envisioning process. The output of the envisioning process is the integrated development vision, then consultation, then detailing. So after data collection, see two type of analysis are there. That sector analysis are there. It will be then spatial analysis. Sector analysis of certainly it will be done in a subgroup level, and spatial analysis it is done by the spatial planning committee. See, under envisioning part, you can see identifying the development issues, setting goals and objectives, then formulating the development concept, then forming the general policy and strategy. So the whole thing, it is known as integrated development vision. So integrated development vision, it will be consulted with the various local government, and finally it will be consolidated, and again it will be detailed based on the various subgroups. See, data collection will be done by the subgroup of the subgroups and spatial planning committee. The sector analysis is done by the subgroup of the tag. Then spatial analysis, it will be done by the Town Country Planning Department. Then this envisioning part, the whole thing, it will be done by the spatial planning subgroup, and detailing is done by the subgroup of the various the tag. So this is the general outlook of the IDDP column. And based on this, we prepared, suggesting a methodology here. It will be divided into three parts. That is part 1, perspective plan, then part 3, execution plan, then part 3, consolidated district plan. So the perspective plan, it is almost in line with the column model. Certainly it is data collection, compilation. The analysis, it is divided into 2, sector analysis and spatial accuracy analysis. Then envisioning process, the identification of development issues, setting up of goals and objectives, emerging of development concern, then framing general policy and strategy for the major development, formulation of perspective plan. Then this execution plan is for the 5-year, and perspective is for the 15 to 20 years. And under execution plan, ensuring the participation of local government, consultation with the integrated development vision, and consolidate the proposals. And sectoral detailing consists of projection, framing of detailed policies and sectoral recommendation, and linking of proposals and formulation of execution plan. As I told, DPC has major 2 roles. That is, DPC had to consolidate plans of the panchayat and municipality. That is, in part 3, that is consolidated district plan is consists of this. District plan components of the local government, the approach paper for LSG, then draft 5-year plan of FGC, then consolidation of plans of LSG, formulation of the consolidated district plan. Coming into the roadmap of the district planning in India, this also we have experimented in Kollam. First, we created, certainly district planning exercise is not a simple task. multiplicity of agencies, as you have seen, 18 subgroup coordinating various department, vast spectrums or aspects are to be addressed. So the draft district development plan is not a simple task. So we need a step-by-step approach. That is, brick by brick approach is needed. But each brick should have own standing and use in discipline.
Mr. Jacob, you have 3 minutes, just to let you know.
Okay. The first brick, that is urbanization report, that is spatial structure, it will be designed here. And the details also you can see. The next step is the district spatial plan. You can upgrade this district urbanization report, DUR, into DSP, that is a district spatial plan. Here, a plan preparation is happening, but more or less technical work. Mainly, you can do it in-house by the Town and Country Planning Department, or this both DUR and DSP you can also outsource to the various institutions. So next, this DSP can be upgraded to the IDDP perspective plan. Yeah, IDDP perspective plan. See, by the way, see, it will take 4 to 6 months for preparation of DUR, discharge, and additional 4 to 6 months, sorry, 3 to 4 months is required for preparing DSP. And see, another 4 to 6 months it will take for the preparation of IDDP perspective plan. Then the execution plan and another 3 to 4 months. So if you complete this IDDP perspective plan and execution plan, it will be a plan as per the Constitution. Then there is another role of the DPC, that is consolidating plans of the Panchayat and municipality. And also, see, our plan, when a spatial plan, when it is integrated with the financial plan, 5-year plan, then only it will be successful. So this is the roadmap I'm suggesting. And then final way forward. See, my first suggestion is that we have to make an attempt to prepare IDDP or draft development plan for every district in India. So if you use this roadmap, say for the preparation of a draft development plan, you can complete this plan preparation between 14 to 20 months. And if you try for this in India, see, we have more than 640 districts. And within 3 years, you can complete this district development plan preparation in India. So this roadmap, DUR, DSP, it can be done through by engaging consultants or external experts. And certainly coordinating various line departments of 18 subgroup, the main concentration of the department line is necessary. Then for another necessary guideline, handbook, toolkit, customized software, etc., in this respect to be needed to be designed to suit the various different geographical and development region. it will help to fill the, see, if you do this, it will help to fill the gap of the district or regional planning in multi-level planning process in our country. And alternative solution, see, at present we don't have a national planning commission. See, we have only Nidhi Ayog. So there is a vacuum created now for integrating various plans at the local and district level. So that gap can be filled if you do this roadmap and a district plan preparation. And this mechanism for integrating project at a regional and local level. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jacob. Very, very inspiring work. Very rarely one comes across such a detailed and comprehensive planning work. Whatever is being generally taught, mentioned how planning should cover all kind of aspects and domains. And it has been always challenging to bring all the layers comprehensively together in some aligned framework. That remains challenging even now, and that is reflected in our living reality in the normal world. So what Kerala has attempted and what you people have tried, I think it's quite commendable and one should learn from it. I would request people to start posing question here. So already we have one question. Can you see also, Mr. Jacob, the questions? One is from Uttara. That is the one for you. Does the
Sir, thanks
district
for your
planning?
presentation. That one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does the district planning process have provision for accommodating feedback for local community, civil society groups, and voice from the ground? Yeah, actually, see, subgroup is consist of not the government officials. I've forgotten to tell that. The subgroup is chaired by the elected representative, and it is convened by the district level officer or the concerned subject. Say if it is agriculture, principal agriculture officer. If it is social welfare, the district level officer of the social welfare department. See if it is infrastructure, say roads, it will be convened by the executive engineer roads. And the other members are civil society groups members. And also research or expert members, they are the other members. So that provision is already there. How many planners and various subject experts are engaged in the activity at the department? See, for Kollam, we had about 200 experts, NGOs. Actually, um, um, we have given training for spatial planning more than 10,000 people in Kollam. We had trained the line department, including collector. We have trained the various NGOs and various experts. So, and how many planners? See, around about 10 planners may have engaged for Kollam IDDP. The district town planner was there. Under district town planner, there is deputy town planner is there. Then 3 assistant town planners are there. Then we hired some planners in contract basis. Okay. How many participation organized in IDDP process? See, I told you, see, we have a how many meeting means maybe about 20 participatory meeting might have conducted.
They're particularly asking how the weaker section of the society, how their participation was ensured.
Actually, in preparation of district plan, see, stakeholders has been consulted. So if it is a women issue, see the women gender that people who is active in that through association union that they were invited to discuss in the stakeholder discussion. That is not clearly shown in the diagram in 11. Actually, see, this is a very vast presentation, IDDP, and I cannot present within this 20 minutes. So that is why I actually we have a lot of presentation, and it will take 2 or 3 days if you want to see that full presentation. See, every subgroup there is a presentation. 1 or 3 presentations are there. From first analysis, their suggestion, then third stage, their proposals. And similarly, in spatial analysis also, various stages of presentations are there. Maybe 5 or 10. Then each activity, there is a presentation. Say, identifying development issue, identifying setting goals and objectives, then formulating development concept. So a lot of presentation. I think you may see about 2,000 slides are there.
So I think I think you have already responded to some of the key questions in the quick response time. We can now move on to, and there are many questions which you can go through and that we can take up after the third presentation. That would be good. We can now move on to the next presentation, and I can see that there's quite a lot of interest in the people to talk about this, and that is the whole idea of this purpose and forum. So thank you very much. And I think it also gives us an idea when you talked about that you need something like 2 to 3 days to capture and present and share. I fully agree. Maybe we can look into this, how to capture this, and maybe organize a special session on this kind of model. We will come back to you on that.
Okay,
so now what we will do, so we will invite now Dr. Arindam Biswas, and then we will open the floor for open questions and answers after Arindam's presentation. Thank you, Mr. Jacob, again.
Thank you, Lalit. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you, Chris, for both. Congratulations to both of you for this wonderful, wonderful forum. I hope you can see my slides.
We can see, Arindam, you might have to be a bit louder, I guess.
Okay, now you can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear earlier, but a bit louder is better.
Okay, great. So this is my presentation, which is transformative power of knowledge on regional development. So to begin with, why regional development or city region planning is so difficult is because there are many layers of thinking, many layers of influences, many layers of function that comes into in a city region. So it has some homogeneous activity or homogeneous region that we may call when we count some kinds of homogeneity based on some criteria. It may be cultural, it may be functional. And today I will talk about a relatively newer concept, although it's not that much new in terms of implementing innovative potential of region and how we can consider that for our city regional development. It comes from the paradigm shift of the resource consumption or business of resources. When we consider the export of our agricultural raw materials, it is reducing as a percentage of total export. It's not the volume of the export, but rather than the other sectors are actually taking up much larger share of that export percentage. Even in terms of global standard, you can also see that EU and both US, including China, is gradually catching up in terms of what we call as a paradigm of economic shift of knowledge economy. We are also gradually catching up with the globe in terms of this knowledge economic conversion. So what is knowledge economy if we can define? There are 6 verticals of knowledge economy: education, R&D, artistic creation, communication, information service, and IT. And in this research, I will talk about, and in this presentation, I will talk about at least 3 of those verticals, which needs a very robust integration into capture this knowledge economy or to capture the benefits of this knowledge economy. It's not, as I was telling, that it's not a new, but it's not a new concept, but it's a new concept. Economic theorists and spatial economists are already talking about this for a long time. We can consider at least Schumpeter's 39 and McCulloch in 62 to define what is knowledge economy. But Schumpeter says that there are two kinds of agglomeration. One is a firm level production, and there is an aggregation of firm. These are the two basic things that actually drive a city's growth and also its directions and quality of growth. We are mostly talking about the quantity of growth, but we also need to think of the quality of the urban or regional growth that we are experiencing. So when we say knowledge economy, there are 4 pillars of knowledge economy: education, innovation, network, and government intervention. Education, which is primarily supplying the quality and the skilled workforces. Innovation, which employ these workforces into research and development in science and technology. The robust network system. We are fortunate that we have some standard of communications and infrastructure system in our country. We are able to do these kinds of webinar in this very difficult time. And also the government policies and regulatory environment, which promotes and supports this kind of knowledge economic development. So what actually this knowledge and innovation does, they actually create this knowledge asset into value creation of your economic value from a agrarian or a normal service sector to a knowledge sector or to an innovation sector. So our value of our economy, our value of our output increases. We produce the same output, for example, in innovations or research and development or teaching, but the value of our value in terms of our business value or financial value or economic value is probably not as the same level as probably you can experience in EU or even in the West or in some developed East like Japan or Korea. So there is a kind of an innovation process that needs to be integrated into this knowledge and innovation in addition to our service sector economy. So what are the 5 factors that actually contributes in it is development of knowledge, market formation, resource mobilization, legitimization, and there is always an external economy. What I did is that I tried to somehow kind of relate what are the kinds of economic, as mostly spatial economics model, their more contributing concept, and how our Indian policies actually address to those kinds of concepts over the years, and try to figure out where we did what kinds of activities, and also how it has influenced in our process of not only spatial, but as a structural growth as a city region. Because whatever it's happening, it happens mostly in terms of city region. Innovation mainly happens in city region, rather than in rural areas. That is what our experience is till now. So when we consider state as a city as a kind of a flow system, and we have to consider at least two parameters. One is the spatial transformation, another is the structural transformation that happens, that actually promulgate that spatial transformation. I think what the mistakes that we do is that we consider, or we put more focus on either on spatial transformation or on structural transformation, but do not include these two into our regional development process. But when these two integrate in regional development process, because of our cities are so dense at our core, the juxtaposition of these two traits can only happen at the periphery. It may be an peri-urban area, it may be a new town, but it generally do not happen within the core itself. So what are the structural transformation that I am talking about? It's kind of which in a globalized world, it most mainly come from mainly external economies or sometimes maybe within internal economics. So we also need to understand and accept this huge force, that economic force that come into play. So this is a very important aspect of the structural transformation, which actually create this kind of spatial transformation of clustering and proximity of geographical proximity, which consider the land use distribution and the connection between land use proximity, and clustering, when we are talking about clustering of firms, which are the like-minded firms which have a business interest or which has a cultural or social interest in terms of its network. So that's how it takes place. So coming to an example, we can take, this is probably the most sought after example when we consider knowledge economy or the implications of knowledge economy in today's world. And the network that I was talking about between the universities, between the human resources, between government public policy, and the innovator. So, for example, Silicon Valley, San Jose, which started with the Stanford and UC Berkeley as a kind of a supplier of the technology, supplier of the innovation, and then there are ecosystem which garner those kinds of innovation knowledge and then implement that in terms of industrialization. So it creates a kind of a value addition which the today's globalized world, most of the metropolitan region or most of the metropolitan cities are actually sought after this globalized world. So we are trying to get these kinds of capital accumulation in our city or the city region itself. Same example we can take from Europe. This is one, right? Rhein-Main-Neckar in Germany, which is more specialized on biotechnology and pharmaceutical clustering and regionalization of a larger knowledge economy and human resources who are in knowledge economy in this region. Coming to India, we generally have this five region which I studied for this research for our understanding of how this knowledge economy is actually shaping in our country. Now you can see that the left-hand side graph, the bar chart, which suggests there are on-site service and the off-site service. On-site service is practically the service where the human resources leave the country, go to the site and provide job. And off-site service is they are doing their job in India, sitting in India. Now you can see in 1994, there is a gradual dip in on-site service and gradual increase in off-site service. That is when in 1991, US have their visa policy introduced. They have their cutoff in terms of B1 visa category, and they limit the knowledge worker of any kind coming from any country. So which kind of a political economy of the United States, but which stopped some kind of a human resource flow from India to US, but which attributed to a lot of capital outflow from the US to India, mostly in terms of this knowledge and innovation industry. And when we come to zoom into India, all the major city region actually competing with each other, whether intentionally or in absence of intention, the capital actually trying to locate that region where it can have that investment potential into it. So when we see within the India this kinds of a 5, 6 competing city region that exists, where I found that Bangalore, which actually outperformed most of the city regions, and there are many valid reasons. And my research is why Bangalore city region actually transforming so fast, being a kind of a very soft and retired town to become the cosmopolitan hub or the innovation hub of the country. And you can see that in terms of every aspect, be it growth in IT companies, growth in IT export, and or growth in employment in IT sector, every sectoral categorization of innovation cluster or in terms of only IT, Bangalore is actually taking a much larger lead compared to any other cities or any other states. Now here I sometimes you see a kind of a state as a region, because we have the data in that state itself. Data kind of I call it as we live in a data deficiency country. In our case, sometimes our region become the state, sometimes our region become the district, sometimes our region become metropolitan region. It depends on what the level we can aggregate the data. That's all. So in this case, the data is the IT export of or some other things that are mostly comes from the either state or the district level. And till now, the government do not have that much kind of an information base. So we try to collect all this data from NASCOM or any other kinds of sources that we have for the data integration. So when I try to create a kinds of an evolutionary parameter of Bangalore's knowledge-based industry, it goes into, let's say, 80s, when we have Texas Instruments, which was kind of the first kind of a foreign firm which came into Bangalore. They created a direct software uplink facility. Bangalore was the first city which has direct direct data upload facility. They don't have to rely on Delhi or in some other cities to get approval or to upload data. So those are the kinds of basic infrastructure for any kind of IT innovation and IT service sector, which was important. Then into 84, Infosys came into as a big role. Then Wipro came in 90s. And then these are the companies which also created some other kinds of spin-offs, which I call in when gradually in 90s or in 2000s. So this spin-offs, which creating certain kinds of development, certain kinds of human resource presence within the city region, it also create a kind of a spatial implications in the city itself. And we need to adapt to those kinds of transformations, especially when we are talking about, let's say, defense corridor or TOD or corridor-based development. What are the kinds of development? What are the kinds of investment? What are the kinds of capital inflow will happen? We need to create our spatial plan, considering those kinds of transformation, anticipating those kinds of transformation. That's why the city region planning and city region development is very, very challenging and complex. Everybody know Bangalore. This is just the location of Bangalore and its contribution to India's IT export and global hub. Now, the spatial growth that Bangalore city has seen over the past 50 years is phenomenal. In the yellow, in the left figure, the yellow part is actually you're seeing what Bangalore used to be in the 50s, and then it gradually have the typical corridor-based development, the finger-based development that we experience based on that highways and the networks in 70s. And in the 90s, we try to, you can see that that red portion, which is trying to fill up those fingers with growth and development within that patch of area. And Bangalore very quickly could do a kind of a roundabout or a ring road, which try to integrate that city region from a finger-based development to a holistic development process. In 2000, again, it started this finger-based development. And that also has certain kinds of implication that I will come in the later slide and will tell you what are the kinds of implication or why it actually happened.
Arun,
But
you have 3 minutes.
okay, so we have these kinds of also growth in land use and in distribution that happen in this process, both in terms of residential, commercial, and public and semi-public. And most of these growth actually happen at this periphery. This is the initial phase in the 80s and the 90s when I was referring to. You can see that the development was hard, mostly in the core, where in and around the old airport area and existing industrial area. Then in the, which I call nucleation phase in 91 and the 96, which try to get the development out of the city, where in the southern side you have the electronic city that came into foray, and that actually somehow managed to outflow the growth from the city to the city surroundings. And then in during the Y2K boom and the dot-com bust phase, when there are a lot of improvement, a lot of people got job in those phase. At that time, ITPL came at the periphery, which is a program of the government of India, and Electronic City, that both came into at the periphery. And then there's the peripheral agglomeration that gradually begin along the ring road. So, and it also has the new international airport that came in the north has certain kinds of development that gone into the northern side. And it is still continuing these kinds of development, and that kind of that is actually happening both in terms of agglomeration of firms and agglomeration of social and cultural attributes. The spatial transformation also attributed, this is the kind of a map which I got the number of patent that is being filed from the locations. So you can see in the in initially the patents were mostly filed by the centers part of the city. So that means there are a lot of those creative and those knowledge-based industries. Those were at the center. But in 2018, it is in 2007. In 2018, most of these patents are being approved, which are located at the periphery. So there is a gradual shift from these knowledge-based clusters from the center to the periphery that has already attributed to the growth of Bangalore towards the periphery itself. And we can also see the clusterization. I do not have much time in terms of the network between the educational institute, the public research funding institutes, and also government policies. So this is why probably in my research, which I found that the structural transformation in terms of regional economy that taken into Bangalore, they have the first IT policy in 97, in Millennium IT policy, then ICT policy, then they came up with I4 policy, startup policy in 2015, and so forth. So they are kind of a very progressive in terms of adapting to this new technology and creating that growth, that opportunity for themselves. It also created certain kinds of agglomeration of IT experts and also other kinds of knowledge workers, other kinds of skilled workforces within the city itself, which has an implication in real estate, which has an implications of consumption pattern. So why this happens in Bangalore, if in nutshell, what we can say is that the first of all, Bangalore used to be a research and development city with a very kind of a very small, medium or a very calm kind of a city with all the public service limited initially. Then there are a lot of agglomeration of higher education institution, IISc, IIM Bangalore, and more than 100 private engineering institute, which are actually supporting these kinds of innovation-based development with human resources within the city itself. Then they also came up with the industrial policies in 90, which mostly talked about non-polluting industry. 100% tax exemptions were given. Its geographical location also play a certain role. It is very far from China or Pakistan. It has a very nice weather, and it also is connected to Andhra and Mumbai. So it's kind of a very well located in terms of its growth. So, and it also had, as I mentioned, a very high-speed data connectivity, which happened with the establishment of STPI. And it also has a very culturally progressive city, which allow the multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious human resources to come and to explore and to be within the city itself. So that is another important aspect for Bangalore to grow. So in the inferences, which I can say that the collaborative arrangement of natural and technical and technological trajectory with the institutional factors and cultural arrangements play a very decisive role in today's regional growth and city regional growth when we are shifting our economic trajectory to a completely new dimension. This also have a focus from the traditional economy to a more knowledge-driven economy, the quality of urbanization, the quality of regionalization that needs to be taken care of, especially when we are focusing on projecting or anticipating growth and preparing our cities for the future. That's what is very difficult. We also need to consider the role of universities and educated society, and also supplying the continuous knowledgeable labor forces for these kinds of regional development to prosper, and also identify different actors, creation of more collaborative approach into our spatial development. Thank you. These are the this presentation mostly taken from this publication. Some of the things which is still research under process. So I'd like to thank DST who is sponsoring this project, and these are my two support who workers, to Sukanya and Arun, who is working on this research for me. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rindam. Very insightful also, and very well captured the part of, I think it's a very live case study from one particular angle, how a city and its economy-led perspective has been finding a very progressive path. So with this, we have almost half an hour left. I would suggest that we can go for at least minimum 20 minutes for open discussion. The questions are there. I would requesting all the speakers to please go through the questions. There are questions posed for you, and you can start responding. And the last 10 minutes, me and Christoph, we just have some concluding remarks. Shall we keep it like this?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yes.
now, okay, first we take up some questions. If there are some particular questions for Arindam.
There is one question.
First we take yours and then we make it open.
How much of the, sorry. Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. First question is, how much of the knowledge asset in any of the planning organization and academic programs seriously and thoroughly include ecological sciences? Without this, any value creation will be ultimately only anthropocentric and counterproductive for the human race. In my experience as a university professor, and this is, I think Chris have posted this one, right?
No, Chris is different one.
Missing in planning, organization, education program, professions, government, and in the minds of attitudes of the planet. The 21st century requires to recognize that this planet Earth is not meant only for our insatiable consumption. Indian planning scenario is steeped in archive and passes notion what planning is and its true role is. The fundamental change is required in our beloved country. I think this is more like a suggestion probably. How much ecological sciences. I think ecological sciences are important, but when in general, what we experience is that our economic desire outperform our ecological sciences, which is not should be. But I think it is well mentioned that this integration of this different discipline is very important, and which is very extremely difficult when we are planning in space. Because everything we are anticipating for the future, and nobody knows what the technological innovation happens and what kind of investment that will come, and we have to always go for that. However, there are opportunities to integrate that, and probably with our newer kinds of technology, with data science and spatial science, capturing satellite images will be helpful including integration of AI and deep learning into planning could be helpful, I suppose, to capture the future much precisely than we used to be in past. And this next question was, what is the ecological footprint of Bengaluru? I don't know actually what is the ecological footprint of Bengaluru. It needs a lot of data. I don't have that data. Even if we have that data, I think it is very difficult to project the ecological footprint, especially in this globalized world. Something in Bangalore may be coming from every part of the world. And it's very, very difficult to actually capture the ecological footprint, and especially when we do not have the data. Okay, Chris, 50, how would you understand the knowledge economy in terms of potential for urban area, distance, location? I think space research is very important. The first thing is for me, at least in today's world, the functional region, whatever we call that, we can easily determine simply by taking the transportation route and transportation network. And in today's world, we have all these mobile phones. We can get the mobile phone signature, and we can get the everyday travel pattern of any city from these mobile phone signatures. And that should be, at least to start with, we can have our regional demarcation. But we are sticking to our regional demarcation at administration because it is easier to administer those regions. But once we have that demarcation with our, at least the mobility part, from the mobility part, then we can go into much detailed understanding of the economic process of the city region and probably plan much better way into our next 10, 20 or 30 years. I'm not saying that every city region will have similar kinds of economic structure. So that's why the structural transformation or structural understanding comes into play. Something which is happening in Bangalore may not happen in Varanasi or Patna or in some other cities. Every cities have their different aspects. So we need to be very flexible in that nature when we are preparing for this master plan. Master plan is still very static, and we need to be very flexible depending on the city. It's not like that this is the medicine for everything and everyone has to have the same medicine. It's a very wrong approach. Rather than we have to go to the disease of the city and then apply the medicine as per that disease. That's my understanding. But it's very difficult to do. That is for sure.
You can take Chris question, next one, and then we can open. Arindam, there is a next question for you there.
Okay, I think
from Chris.
Yeah, I think
he just addressed it.
Okay. I just respond to
Thanks,
Chris.
Arindam.
Joe, I think he talked about care, etc. be mobilized to the sustainability transition. Yes, which are urgently needed. I'm working with EU consortium. Similar question of regional politics. Yeah, I think in EU it is very progressive, but EU's economic structure is completely different than us. We are kind of in a mix where we have these kinds of very highly knowledgeable and highly innovative people, if we can call them innovative, and also we have many illiterate people who are working in the informal sector. So it's a very kind of a completely different manner of doing. So that's why our process is very complex. But of course, I would love to see certain kinds of those kinds of implementation or those kinds of approach, especially from the European Union. And if something comes up from the Eastern Europe, I think that would be much more relevant to our case probably, rather than the Western Europe or Northern Europe.
Joe was one of the speakers in the last session.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the last, I think Uttara Radhakrishnan.
Yeah.
Yeah. about the local community. It actually happens. It actually happens. My next research goal is to identify the gentrification, actually, huge amount of gentrification that happens with this kind of inflow of this highly innovative class, because they get a lot of money. So the local community is actually getting displaced from their own locality. It actually is some kinds of externalities that happens in the city, that is happening. And probably at this moment, I don't think there are any method to arrest this kinds of gentrification. It will continue until and unless you create certain kinds of community upbuilding at the level of those people who are actually coming from different part of the country. We need to understand the people who are coming in Bangalore region. It's not only from India; they're coming from all over the world, and it's actually very difficult to compete with these kinds of people for the local community if we do not empower them with certain kinds of additional knowledge and development features to compete with them, or even somehow to share the place with certain other kinds of innovation. It doesn't need always to have certain kinds of very high technological innovation. It can be social sector innovation, social enterprises. Uh, in Korea, I think they do a lot of these kinds of issue where because in Korea also in the villages they also see these kinds of kind of a duo development process where very highly skilled people comes with the rural people. So they try to make certain kinds of rural enterprises which try to get at par with this highly uh, economically able people in their place. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, No, we actually do not still not experiencing much of kind of a depopulation. Our cities are still growing, and mining declining. Yeah, maybe, but I don't have much idea about the mining towns and what is their status. But I think in India, most of our mining towns still functioning, except few. For example, one I know for copper in Rajasthan, some of the small mines have been closed, and then there are a lot of environmental issues. Uh, but yeah, I think I would like to talk to Joe if I can get his number or email.
We'll put you in touch.
Okay, thank you.
Good. So maybe now we can keep it a bit open for or any question if people want to put forward to any of the speaker or any of the speaker, would they like to address anything openly out of the questions which have been put forward? Either way is fine.
Yeah, Mr. Lalit, I just want to comment on that, which Uttara has raised at issue, which Arindam has talked about.
Okay.
Probably the best thing is not about Sriberumbudur, but you should also see Tiruchangod. Tiruchangod, which was in Tamil Nadu, which started off with a small town. Now it has become a global thing. There are studies done on that by some of the French people, how this Tiruchangod is sending across all the deep wells, how to construct the deep wells, okay, in the area to Africa and other places. The locals, how they converted themselves into developing this and educated them in terms of how to do this work. Probably it's a very good example of how the transformation occurs in terms of informality and to formality in a city which is emerging.
Could you write the spelling of this place in the Zoom chat box? People can see. Just write the spelling. That would be helpful.
Sure. I'll do that.
Okay.
Or you can also call it as Tiruchangod.
That's fine. We got an idea. People can just check it out.
Yeah, it is there. It's an international case which has been developed by
See,
the French.
this is one of my point which I feel there's a vast amount of knowledge. I mean, what we are doing by this webinar series or anything, we are creating a virtual city or a community of a kind. So if we enhance, if we organize, one of the thing which I just came to my mind and I want to intervene and say from also Auroville, learning from Auroville, mother, the founder of Auroville, she says, we all have to learn how to organize better. Or we have to learn how to organize better. We cannot keep on living by the old method, whatever the knowledge, ideas, feelings, emotions we had earlier. As a society, as human beings, we have to learn how to organize better. And planning is very much in the middle of all that. And that is why the issues of planning have been always challenging, because there is a natural resistance to come bring all the polarities and diversity together. This kind of capacity, both in the people, those who are either attempting the work as a consultant or academicians or the society, it has been a very challenging journey. It's a like path of evolution almost. So that is very clear, and that also brings the perspective on the topic and domain of planning, which is very much needed and rather needs to go ahead. So within that domain, would you like to address anything else, Mr. Shidharan? Anything out of this question?
See, this is the main thing which I want to second point where it is very important. Now we are also trying in terms of the technologies which you are trying to do, like that village development which we are trying to explore, and also in the case of sustainable development goal, okay, which we are working for along with GIZ. We are trying to use the social media that becomes something like a directly going together, and then in terms of participation, how to bring out the social media in terms of participatory thing. In fact, one of my student who has just left now, he has worked on this in only on the disaster thing in Chennai, how the Chennai the floods, how to use the social media in analyzing in terms of the future. Okay, these kind of the technology which has to be brought in here, even in terms of expansion. So there are studies which are available between Bangalore to Mysore, how the expansion is coming in terms of peri-urban to something like a region, an urban region which is coming up from the Mysore to Bangalore. So these are all the things which has to be documented properly, and publicity has to be brought in through the social media. How to bring it this, because the publication, if you had to go and buy something, let's say published material, it becomes impossible for others to reach it. Whereas the social media, definitely it is going to reach us to the future. Okay, to this, to convince them and to deliberate some issues on that. I think that's the thing which you need to use it for this, what you call participatory planning process. It can be, which otherwise was not effective. Now we can use this media to do this one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jacob, would you like to say something, some final remarks, or you want to address any one of the questions?
Yeah, the one question is do you think that political support for this process is most critical element to ensure that this become a practice and not one-time exercise as it has happened in many other states? Yeah, certainly political support is a must. Second, see, Government of India need a policy. If they distribute some fund, they have to insist the constitutional obligation of preparation of a district plan, metropolitan plan. Likewise, there is no, even master plan is not necessary for funding anything. That is the situation we are seeing after this independence. So now how many years have passed? So many 5 years have been, 5-year plans have been invested. But there is no precondition for master plan or district plan or metropolitan plan. That is the situation. That policy has to be changed. Then there is another question, how much your district level planning was based on contour map? All plans are based on contour maps. Then again, see, one point I want to mention. See, for the participation, you can adopt various methods. Even social network, everything, it can be done. But it does not ignore the Ward Sabha or Grama Sabha for participation. See, India is a democratic country and we have to adopt systematic participation. See, Grama Sabha is the best place, or Ward Sabha is the best place to express views from all sections of people. So, see, ignoring Ward Sabha or Grama Sabha, certainly the other participation is good, but don't ignore the Grama Sabha and Ward Sabha. And if it is a special issue, say cycle rickshaw issue, you can convene a special Ward Sabha for cycle rickshaw groups. In Kerala, it will, we normally do like that. That if it is an SC/ST issue, the members of the SC/ST special Ward Sabha will be convened. So it should be done in a Pakka democratic system. Certainly, the other participation is good. I am not denying it, but don't forget to have a systematic, legal, constitutional. We should not ignore the constitutional bodies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Any other last questions from participants? I would first maybe also mention and share at this point in time. I have in the chat shared the form link, which is already circulated also in the via email and also in the WhatsApp. So the people, those who are interested, that would be helpful if you can share your feedback via this form. That would be nice. Putra has shared immediately an article on this place. That is nice. Christoph, shall we do the concluding part now, or you want to say a few things before that? There are like few slides. Shall we just come to that?
Yes, yeah, I think that's a good time now. And maybe with this, we can then also highlight some of the key issues that were discussed today.
Yes, we can do that. And so this, you can see it all fine. You can see it.
Not in the slide mode though. Now, yes.
Now it is coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So this brings with the participation of all the speakers and participants, our fourth session and this whole webinar series on the city region to the concluding session. Very grateful and thankful to all those who gave their time, energy, and interest towards this, and those who have this feeling, liking, and interest in this field. I think this is, we are able to create some kind of a sense of community, solidarity. How do we come together around this? And best thing would be how to build it up further, so that we will see in one of the last slides. So some of the key insights from our side, what we have been able to capture is, or you want, Christoph, this is you would like to say?
Yeah, I can do that. Of course, given the complexity and also the multitude of topics and themes that we have covered, we can only give a brief overview and a reflection here. But this is something that we would like to highlight, a few of these points here, like these key insights. And I think one of the key themes that we also discussed today is that there is probably still a need to develop this vision and practice for a more integrated and multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary spatial planning approach. So one of the issues when we talk about city regions, peri-urbanization, and also the urbanization process that Professor Sridharan highlighted today is this spatial integration, how to coordinate multiple agents and multiple government organizations, and how to bring civil society at par with these development activities. So one of the points is this question of how can mainstreaming of such an approach take place. We have many good examples, but this mainstreaming and rolling it out at the larger scale seems to be still one of the issues. And this relates very much to the second point, collaborative, participatory, and democratic governance. So how can we include a wide range and also motivate a wide range of agents, stakeholders within a formal structure of development planning, but also provide space for more informal interaction that goes parallel to these formalized processes and allows space for ordinary citizens, for those who are more marginalized, weaker sections of society. And that affords quite an effort. And it also needs experts, expert planners who act as moderators, facilitators of such processes. So it's a question also of the skills and probably also the training that planners and architects receive to be able to learn techniques that can be then used and applied in such a process of participation. So maybe you have heard of this ladder of participation, and there are different scales and levels as to how intense and also how effective participation might be. So we can all talk about participation from a token point of view, but it might not lead to the decision-making and giving voice to people, giving voice to community organizations, giving a voice to indigenous populations. And at the higher level, we reach this question of, are they empowered to be part of the decision-making process? And a key word that we also discussed in this regard is subsidiarity, which links these processes to government levels. So where are decisions made, and where is also taking, or who is taking the lead in such processes? Is it the village panchayats? Is it the district leading the process for district development planning? Or is it the state government? So is it more a top-down process, or is it a process where bottom-up and top-down interaction is taking place? So this whole area of participation and stakeholder engagement is crucial to bridge these issues of spatial and urban regional integration. And obviously this webinar has shown that there is a lot happening out there. It's not a theorizing that we are doing, but we have seen so many examples which are working fine in their particular locations. We only mentioned a few here, Auroville, Pondicherry in our first session, which actually is a good example for such informal processes of interaction and public engagement. Kochi, Kollam, both in Kerala, where it seems an entire state is an interesting and also spearheading approaches of urban development, where this kind of spatial integration is happening. Now we have Bangalore we discussed. So there are various approaches that are promising. And this is also the cycle back to the first point. So mainstreaming of such approaches, how can this take place? So I leave you at that with these points, and surely we can add more. So we would be happy also to hear what your main takeaways are. So this is part of our request to you to provide a feedback form, and also to see what can be done in terms of a way forward. And with this, I pass back onto you, Lalit, to show the next slide. What can be done? How can we continue from here?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Some of the very broad point which partly have been already taken up also by Mr. Sridhar, and he took them up and responded in his own way. So some of the very, I would say, normal, commonsensical approaches which come to our mind is they could, if we could have more case studies on city regions, including some urban case studies, in the compilation or more awareness about them, because I'm not sure if many people are really aware about these things, what all is happening, and a great amount of work is happening at different level. It may be good, it may be less good, but at least we bring this information together and create a sense of awareness around them. This was one of the point which is personal favorite to me also. A city is very rich in terms of its resources, whether they are institutions, local bodies, citizens, many other things. How a city could engage or mobilize its own resources. So this needs a bit of a more aware approach of engagement and, yeah, mobilizing the internal resources, talent, skill, and taking care of both the city and region. Something more towards that, our engagement with the city, if this could be inculcated, or this dimension could be brought out bit more, or even taught, or given a chance in the school, colleges, when our young people, boys and girls, those who are studying any branch, it does not matter whether you are studying planning or other, it is about a sense of engagement. I think that quality is very important to bring the transformation which we all like to see. There could be a dedicated resource website for city regions that may be helpful. Sometimes it is good to concentrate things and where we can find all this information as a portal. There could be collaborative studios, research internship in this field. If you look at only the field of architecture planning, there are so many studios and learning exercises are happening. If they are coordinated in a bit more better way, or this all information, research, or maybe some proposals, if they are given back to city neighborhoods in some way to implement upon, I think that would be also great. And that way the our young minds will also learn how to engage. Otherwise it remains a very theoretical understanding of issues and affairs, which does not help beyond a point. Institutional capacity building in this field, this has been already mentioned many times by others. This is required in general on planning, it is needed, and that too on the integration. And there are other simple normal communication tools, WhatsApp group and email, which there are many already. So of course there is always a risk that they will all become into a forward, but sometimes it is also bring the people together, and if there is a like-mindedness, or even if a diversity, to bring things together. I'll just highlight this. This will help us perhaps. So Sri Aurobindo says all problems of existence are essentially the problem of harmony. So we all seek harmony. Problems are very much part of that larger spectrum, which are not going to go away. Rather, they are opportunities to grow and to be built upon, to find a creative and collaborative solutions. This is, I have already shared in the chat box. It is also there in the email. We would like to hear. Please do send us your feedback if you have attended one or more sessions, whatever, or what would you like to see more on these lines. These are our contact email IDs. We have shared engagingcities@gmail.com. This is mine, Lalit at auroville.org.in, and this is Christos, which I will have a difficulty to read, but you can see. I'm posting these also on the Zoom chat box. And I think that is it with this, let us say, integrated thought and a view from our Auroville Matre Mandir and the Banyan. This is Geographical Center. We would like to say thank you all for joining us. It has been a great journey. We wanted to just share and bring together, and very grateful to all the people, those who joined and gave their valuable time and energy to come together. Really very helpful and grateful for this.
Thank
And
you very much.
this is it from my side. We just ended on time. That is quite something. I am just sharing the email IDs also here quickly. So we can now leave it open if anybody, either the first speakers or any participants. Now it could be mic open base. We don't have to regulate now so much. This is the end, and just a second. I'm just, anybody, any kind of idea, anything, most welcome. Feel free. You can just maybe, if there are more people, just write your name so that there is some kind of order. That's all. Arindam, I see you very smiling on this screen. So you are like the boy who is smiling more. I have to ask him in the class.
Okay. I think you have done a fantastic work. And I only hope you have you have formulated some of the strategies to go from here. I do hope that you can you can continue this process and engaging this. But I am not sure with this COVID situation when we will be able to do most of those activities. Till then, we only have to rely on this network and built on for the glory days in future in anticipation. I hope that you continue with this process, and then let's see, something will happen. Another thing which I was just mentioning, that if some of these kind of a presentation can be in a e-format and send it to all the government agencies, I think at least soft copy, it will not have that much financial implications. Be it the local government and also the national government would be maybe you can think of that. So
I
that
would, no, I would agree with this possibility. I mean, one simple thing which we all can perhaps try, very simple, and I would say easily available and free. All these presentations are there both on YouTube and Facebook. They are being live streamed right now. So all the sessions are there. I have sent still almost 3 previous sessions, the links. It can be shared again with everybody as a closing session. I can share in both email and WhatsApp, not an issue. Yeah, but spreading the knowledge about this and sharing would be a good idea and a very simple practical step to do. We will do that. And thank you very much for your kind and encouraging words.
Thank you, Lalit. You are so nice.
I would like to share my few experience.
But you both of you have done a tremendous work. It's a very difficult task to organize. I'm sure. I know I've organized many forums, but it's very difficult task. Great.
You remember how there was an example of Kumbh?
Yeah.
The group comes together.
We see every June and July. This year we could not.
I postponed my.
We are confined within the campus because we cannot.
Next time I'll come and I'll see you particularly when I come to Roorkee. Okay, we have Mr. Pankaj Kumar who wants to say something. Yes,
yeah,
please. Go ahead.
First of all, many hearty congratulations on completing this webinar series in time and with a wonderful knowledge sharing sessions. Particularly, I wish that Pondicherry may be epicenter and take a lead for bioregional planning in India. Through these sessions, just I noticed that if it happens, then I think it will be wonderful way forward for India, where Pondicherry can lead in emphasizing importance of bioregional planning to rest of the India. So these few words I would like to say here. Thank you very much for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe is asking what will happen next.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, I think you've answered that. And I'm only asking because, let's say I have a similar question myself. And let's say the short answer is to say, okay, we'll have more networks, we'll have discussion groups, webinars, etc., etc. And well, I just put up a site for the program which I've organized here, which is a global program based in the UK, which is trying to do that and trying to use some of the insights of collective intelligence, which I talked about last week. Now, I have an open question, and actually I spent most of the morning discussing this with my steering group, which is to say, okay, we can organize another webinar and another, WhatsApp group or something, but where is the transformational potential here? What is the secret? And I mean, in this series, I've only been present on 2 of these events out of 4, but I do notice, yeah, we are looking at familiar ground, the problem of the city and the region, the problem of the rich and the poor, the problem of the economic versus the environmental goals, and so on and so on. These things will run and run. Sometimes I think, yeah, there is a transformational moment, a transformational opportunity. And for example, I think the digital moment of, which really took off maybe 25, 20 years ago. This is a transformational possibility, but we don't know how to use it for that transformation. We're reproducing much more of the same. I'm interested in the possibilities that are coming up for planning, or let's say, a larger field of management and strategic intelligence for cities, regions, and any other territory which is relevant. Can we use the digital as one enabler or catalyst to help this transformation to happen? So yeah, I mentioned on the feed the experience in European policy so far, which again, we're trying to transform a relatively bureaucratic structure with large amounts of money which are wasted or, siphoned off by consultants and other people, speaking as one myself, and into something which really can enable and mobilize, the energy of the people, the energy of the civic society. So, well, if I had a wish list for ways to continue this discussion, which I think is fantastic, it would really be to focus more on these, transformational moments. And I could also mention, the philosophy of Auroville and so on, which maybe, is always there. The spiritual dimension, which does not often get mentioned in, city and regional planning circles. How relevant is this? I ask myself. Is it relevant to particularly the questions raised by some speakers on the ecological footprint or the sustainability transition and so on and so on? I would think so. But again, okay, how do we bridge that gap between the spiritual and the material? I'm not an expert in this, but I think we should discuss.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. If I may, a few comments on this. Actually, you probably have seen one of the email contacts and also the subtitle of our webinar, An Engaging Paradigm. So when we started the discussion, Lalit and me, we actually started from the point of view that we need to provide and include and provide a platform for young people. So we actually started from the point of view of an educational and training program. And one of the suggestions that came, I think, from Lalit was that people work in their locations, in their immediate vicinity, in their neighborhood. And we need to address these visions, the energy, and also the potential that especially young people bring with them. As a transformational capacity, and also to have this kind of motivation that young people usually have for change or the openness for change. And probably this is the route we can go. This webinar series then turned out slightly different. We were talking about certificates as well. We were talking about much more interaction by providing assignments as well. But I can see this now maybe as step 2. What do you think, Lalit, to use this and to use this kind of network to move towards really engaging an audience and also invite young people to actually present their projects or their activities. Researchers, this could be PhD research, but maybe even also MSc or master level research, and include this in a series of webinars, of learning experience, and create a kind of workshop environment to focus more on activity that is aimed at change.
Yeah, my suggestion, or let us say the preferred area, is where we have the possibility for the young people to apply something, because the knowledge creation, like you know how they say, there's a proverb, I don't know from where it comes, but it gives a very clear message and a punch: knowledge without use is a poison. So if we give the possibility of, the point which I'm trying to say is, okay, just a minor story. Coming back, my father used to talk about how much time we take in order to so-called gain some kind of wisdom or ideas or be able, and we are left with very less time and less wisdom in order to apply it well for any transformation which may have in our mind and feelings. So we have a lot of good possibility, and also with this internet, the knowledge, so-called knowledge or information availability is rather easy. Anything which can bring things together towards any transformation change, it is in that line. I like the example also of Kollam, where so many people were involved. We always talk about, you see here also the comments by Mr. Shishir Rawal. They are essentially pointing it out how the transformation will happen, change will come. Essentially, we all are seeking that. So any possibility, however small it is, we know planning is a complex subject. It is a very complex. We are aware. So any effort on that level, whether it's a studio or something where people, researchers, they can apply in some way, in new way, innovative way. Maybe next time we bring all the stakeholders together. For example, this could be one way. There could be, e-participation. That is the one approach where we are able to break some deadlock on any given one or two case study, or we present a case study of some kind, like Mr. Shidran has been mentioning. For example, I will be very happy to see all this Gram Sabha work, wherever good work have happened, if somebody can do some kind of either e-documentation, something from there, I think that would be very valuable. The reason being, we essentially live on hope. This is my reading or the feeling. We are looking for a positive direction, meaningful engagement, insightful living paradigm. So any work which is going ahead, let the work be full of insight, research, analysis, but any work which is getting applied in some local context, I think that would be very, very empowering message, very empowering. That is what is coming to my mind somehow as a direction. The nature of event can happen, we can have more people, all this is possible, but I'm more looking for possibility of where these works have been done. So we share with all its difficulty. It is not easy, but more on that path where application engagement is more visible or can be encouraged. If we are not reaching that point, again there is a disconnection kind of thing.
Can I
Anybody?
just, yeah, can I? Just few minutes, Sridharan here. Yeah, the one point which I want to mention, okay, it's very good to bring in the students and studios, and the studios have to be live one. In the sense, our experience, especially see for me, from 2000 to now to 2020, almost 20 years, I take up only the live studios. You go to the student and you go to the various villages as well as in the urban cities, talk to the people. Unless you talk to them and then try to find out and educate our students, it's not possible. When they go out with your master's degree and PhD degree, they are not able to even to apply the issues which we are talking about. So that's a thing which we have in the planning, especially. Okay, because there is a very human and other factors involved into that. That is one issue. Second issue, when you are talking about having an interaction, it's very important. Now, right now, if we say today's discussion which we had, I think Jacob has rightly pointed out, how do you bring those people from the villages to this discussion? How to bring it so that this media can tell them that, okay, what kind of problem we are facing and what. See, just last Saturday, I was in a village. I was something astonished. There is completely, I'm sorry to say that, but it's completely religiously in two different things. Now, for social purposes, everybody is together. There is not even a single problem regarding the religious things. They have been there for ages, for decades, for centuries. It came, that particular village came up always from during that, what do you call, the Iran came here and then they were all there. But when it comes to the spatial dimension, all the Muslims were in one side and all the Hindus were in some other side. Now, how to analyze it in terms of planning, how to analyze it in terms of the land use, how to analyze in terms of the different dimensions, equality, everything. Now, for that, I need a person. Say, when I talk to that panchayat person, Sarpanch, now he had a different view on it. When I talked to the executive officer of that village, he had a different view of it. Now, unless we bring those kind of people here in the discussion, then you come to know many of the things. Because whatever we have in the table is different. What we discuss is based upon one or two cases. When you bring those people from them and then ask them to discuss issue, then something new which I've reached. I got a lot of rich material on that from them. Okay, that is something which you need to share. If you open it up further, I think we need to bring those people and then discuss here. Thank you.
I think this is a good point. My only one minor point which I feel relevant is we do so much of case studies, we go out and do. It would be helpful if all of that work in some analyzed in a simple form is shared back with the people with whom we have studied it, so that at least they know they have some material, either it is a map, anything, a document based on which they can analyze whatever they would like to take it further in some way. But I think this loop hardly gets connected easily after the assignment and things are done.
Yeah, that's what we are doing so far. That's what we are doing, right? From Tripura to Kerala to everywhere. We ask him, say, for example, this one, the map which I showed it today. Now that map, first thing we shared it with the local villagers, with the Sarpanch and with all the people, and we discuss with them on this map. Okay, then only we expand it further, and then again we go back to them. Okay, but how they implement it further, that is depends upon that.
Yeah.
Okay, that is a big challenge for us because there is a lot of political and other thing comes in, dimensions comes in into that.
Human factor is there.
Thank you.
Anybody would like to say some last few remarks? I think only few of the participants are left and most of us speakers are there, but I'm very fine. Few more minutes. Anybody like to say anything?
Nothing specific. I think there is a lot of food for thought now for us how to move this further into the next level. Yes. So let's see what kind of feedback we also receive.
I will add one or two sentences.
Yes, please.
See, the solution, though democracy got a lot of weakness, the solution for this is to deepen the democracy, deepen the local democracy also, not state or central democracy alone.
Yeah.
See, constitution gives various tiers. There is, we have a state government, central government, then 3 panchayats, then 3 municipalities, then district planning committee, MPC, then metropolitan planning committee. To strengthen this through democracy and also Grama Sabha, Ward Sabha. See, this is the civilized manner, civilized system of approaching things. So deepen the democracy. That is the basic solution.
Local empowerment is the key.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming, and it was very inspiring to hear your case study and good to see the people, those who have engaged in such kind of work. Very encouraging indeed. that is it from our side, I guess. Thank you very much again, everybody. Christoph,
Thank
any
you.
final bye-bye?
Thank you.
Bye
Thank you very
bye.
much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. I'll just, yeah.